The breaking point. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council stretched 3 kilometers in diameter, a masterpiece of architectural cooperation from 47 different species. Ambassador Catherine Moore stood at the human delegation's platform, her gray suit pristine, her expression carefully neutral. She had served in the diplomatic corps for 15 years, and in that time she had learned patience. The council moved slowly, deliberately, like a great ship turning in deep water. Today would test that patience like never before. The session had begun routinely enough. Trade disputes between the Kellyan Consortium and the Drexel Collective, mining rights in the neutral territories, standard bureaucratic matters that Catherine could navigate in her sleep. But then the emergency alert had come through on her private terminal. 3 sharp pulses, code red. She read the message twice, her hands steady even as her heart began to race. The Zethran Empire had launched a full-scale assault on the Minari colonies. Catherine waited for the current speaker to finish, a long-winded representative from a species whose name had 17 syllables. She caught the eye of Council Mediator Quinn, a towering figure with silver skin and 4 arms. He nodded slightly, acknowledging her raised hand. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Moore of Earth," Quinn announced, his voice translated instantly into 46 languages. Catherine stepped forward. "Mediator Quinn, honored council members, I must interrupt with urgent news. We have confirmed reports that the Zethran Empire has initiated military action against the Minari colonies in the Outer Reach. Multiple worlds are under attack as we speak." A ripple of sound moved through the chamber. The Minari were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful farmers and artists. They had no military, no weapons, no enemies. They existed on the fringes of council space, bothering no one, contributing their beautiful artwork and surplus food to anyone who asked. The Zethran representative rose to his feet. His name was Krath, and his species resembled great reptilian bears covered in dark scales with burning orange eyes. The human ambassador speaks out of turn. "The Minari occupy worlds that historically belonged to the Zethran Empire. We are merely reclaiming what is ours by ancestral right." Catherine felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her voice level. "Ancestral right? The Minari have lived on those worlds for 4 centuries. 6 billion people call those planets home. You cannot simply decide to take them back." "The historical documentation has been verified," Krath replied, his voice a low growl. "The Minari are squatters on Zethran territory. We gave them notice to evacuate. They refused. This is an internal matter." "They had 48 hours, Catherine said, her voice rising despite her training. "You gave 6 billion people 48 hours to abandon their homes, their farms, their entire civilization. Where exactly did you expect them to go?" Mediator Quinn raised 2 of his hands. "Please let us maintain order. Ambassador Moore, what specifically is Earth requesting?" Catherine looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Some looked concerned. Many looked uncomfortable. A few looked away entirely. "Earth requests immediate council intervention. We request that peacekeeping forces be deployed to the Minari colonies. We are prepared to commit our fleet to protect civilian populations while negotiations proceed." "Absolutely not," barked Krath. "This would be interference in sovereign Zethran affairs." Another representative stood, a delicate being that resembled a crystalline tree. "The human proposal seems reasonable. Perhaps a temporary protection force while we investigate the historical claims." "The claims have already been investigated," said another voice, this one belonging to the Varathian delegate. "The Varathians were a powerful merchant species who did substantial business with the Zethrans. The documentation is legitimate. The council cannot simply ignore property rights because the situation is unfortunate." Catherine wanted to scream. Instead, she spoke with icy precision. "We are not talking about property. We are talking about 6 billion lives, real people, families, children. And we sympathize," Mediator Quinn said, his tone suggesting he actually did. "But the council must follow proper procedures. We cannot deploy military forces without thorough review. I propose we schedule an emergency session for 3 days from now to discuss intervention options." 3 days? Catherine felt her control slipping. "In 3 days, those people will be dead." "Surely that is an exaggeration," said the Varathian delegate smoothly. "The Zethrans are a civilized people. They will not harm civilians unnecessarily." Catherine pulled out her data tablet and connected it to the chamber's display system. "Then explain this." The massive screen surrounding the chamber flickered to life. Live feeds from the Minari colonies filled every display. The images were devastating. Cities burning under plasma bombardment, orbital stations exploding in silent fury, evacuation ships being shot down as they tried to flee the planet's gravity wells. The chamber fell silent. They watched as a Minari hospital collapsed under sustained fire. They watched as farmland that had fed millions for generations turned to scorched earth. They watched as the Zethran fleet systematically destroyed everything the Minari had built over 4 centuries. "Turn it off," someone said quietly. Catherine did not turn it off. She made them watch. She made them see what their procedures and protocols and proper channels actually meant in the real world. She made them witness the cost of their civilization. After 5 minutes, Mediator Quinn spoke. "Ambassador Moore, please. We have seen enough." Catherine cut the feed. The screens went dark. She looked at the council members, at their faces. Some showed horror. Some showed pity. But most showed calculation. They were already thinking about trade agreements, about political alliances, about how this would affect their own interests. "Earth formally requests permission to deploy our peacekeeping fleet to the Minari colonies," Catherine said. Her voice was flat now, emotionless. She already knew what they would say. "Request denied," Mediator Quinn said, and he did sound genuinely sorry. "The Council cannot authorize military intervention in a territorial dispute without full deliberation. We will convene the emergency session in 3 days." Catherine looked at him for a long moment. Then she gathered her materials, disconnected her tablet, and walked toward the exit. "Ambassador Moore," Quinn called after her. "Where are you going?" "The session is not concluded." She stopped at the doorway and turned back. "I am going to watch 6 billion people die, because apparently that is what civilization requires of me." She left the chamber. Behind her, the council erupted into heated debate. It did not matter. None of it mattered anymore. Catherine made her way through the station's corridors to the human embassy section. Her assistant, a young man named David Chen, met her at the door. His face was pale. "Have you been watching?" she asked. He nodded. "Captain Vasquez's fleet is at the border. They are requesting permission to cross into Minari space." "Permission denied by council order," Catherine said bitterly. "Tell her to hold position and observe only." "Ambassador, she says the Minari are broadcasting on all frequencies. They are begging for help." Catherine closed her eyes. She could imagine those broadcasts. Frightened voices calling out to a galaxy that had promised them protection. A galaxy that was going to watch them burn because of historical property claims and proper procedures. "Tell Captain Vasquez that her orders stand. Observe only." "And David?" She opened her eyes and looked at him. "Tell her to record everything. Every ship destroyed, every city burned, every life taken. I want complete documentation." "Why?" "Because someone needs to remember. Someone needs to witness what happened here, even if we cannot stop it." Over the next 6 days, Catherine watched the Minari die. She watched from her office, surrounded by screens showing feeds from Captain Vasquez's fleet. The human ship sat just outside Minari space, their weapons powered down, their crews helpless. The Zethrans were thorough. They did not simply defeat the Minari. They erased them. Every city was leveled. Every orbital structure was destroyed. When some Minari tried to flee in small craft, the Zethrans hunted them down like animals. Catherine forced herself to watch it all. She made her staff watch too. She wanted them to understand what their civilized galaxy really looked like when the protocols failed. On the 3rd day, an emergency council session finally convened. Catherine attended via hologram. She did not trust herself to be in the same room as those people. "The council has reviewed the situation," Mediator Quinn said. "We strongly condemn the Zethran Empire's excessive use of force. We are implementing economic sanctions and demanding immediate cessation of hostilities." "They are already finished," Catherine said quietly. "There is no one left to kill." The final Minari transmission came on the 6th day. It was from a deep shelter on the last surviving colony world. The voice belonged to a female Minari named Sarah. She was a musician famous across several systems for her compositions. "This is Sarah of the Minari. I am broadcasting to anyone who can hear. There are 73 of us here in the shelter, mostly children. The Zethran fleet is in orbit above us. They have destroyed everything on the surface. They will find us soon." Her voice was calm, almost peaceful. "I want the galaxy to know something. We never hurt anyone. We only wanted to grow our food and create our art and live our lives. We asked your council for help. We begged them. They said they needed time to think. Catherine heard children crying in the background of the transmission. I hope your procedures were worth it. I hope your protocols and your debates and your proper channels gave you comfort. Because they gave us nothing. They gave us death. The transmission ended abruptly. Catherine later learned that a Zethran kinetic strike had collapsed the shelter. All 73 Minari inside were killed instantly. That night, Catherine sent her resignation to Earth Command. She could not serve a government that allowed this. She could not be part of a system that valued rules over lives. Her resignation was rejected. Instead, she received new orders directly from the Secretary of Defense. 2 words that changed everything. Come home. Within 12 hours, every human diplomat left Council space. Every trade vessel was recalled. Every peacekeeping ship returned to Earth territory. The Council tried to contact Earth's government for an explanation. Their messages went unanswered. Catherine arrived back on Earth 3 days after the last Minari died. She was immediately taken to a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. She walked through corridors that had not been opened in a century and a half. She entered a command center that made her breath catch. The Secretary of Defense met her there. His name was Marcus Okonkwo, a broad-shouldered man with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. Ambassador Moore, he said. Welcome to humanity's true military headquarters. Catherine looked at the displays showing ship counts, weapon systems, fleet deployments. Numbers that should not exist, could not exist under Council treaties. We have been lying, she said flatly. We have been preparing, Okonkwo corrected. When humanity joined the Galactic Council, we agreed to limit our military. We did limit it. Our peacekeeping fleet follows every regulation exactly. But we also remembered our history. We remembered that peace only lasts when good people can defend it. How many ships? Catherine asked. 15,000. Plus support craft, logistics vessels, and mobile construction facilities. Catherine felt dizzy. That is more than the entire Council's combined military. Yes? And you kept this secret for 150 years? We hoped we would never need it. We thought maybe the Council would work. Maybe there would never be another massacre. Okonkwo's expression hardened. We were wrong. What happens now? Now? Okonkwo walked to a console and entered a command. Throughout the facility, alarms began to sound. Status displays changed from green to amber to red. Ships that had waited silently in hidden stations for generations suddenly powered up their engines. Now we stopped being civilized. Catherine watched the displays update. 15,000 warships moving into formation. Weapons systems coming online. Marines boarding assault craft. This was not the small defensive fleet the Council knew about. This was a military designed for one purpose, total war. What are we going to do? She asked. Though she already knew the answer, Okonkwo handed her a tablet. On it was a single order, approved by every nation on Earth, signed by leaders who understood what this would mean. The Zethran Empire would cease to exist. Not defeated, not conquered, cease to exist entirely. Catherine looked at the order for a long time. She thought about Sarah and the 73 Minari in that shelter. She thought about 6 billion people who died because the Council needed time to think. She thought about civilization and what it was supposed to mean. Then she thought about what it actually meant when tested. I want to go with the fleet, she said. Okonkwo nodded. I was hoping you would say that. You will serve as political officer aboard the flagship. Your job will be to ensure we maintain our own principles even while we do what must be done. You mean to make sure we do not become like them? Exactly. Admiral Cole is waiting to meet you. The fleet deploys in 6 hours. Catherine left the command center and made her way to the fleet docks. The flagship was called the Reckoning. It stretched 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that should not exist. Weapons that could crack planets or boil oceans or turn entire fleets to debris in seconds. She met Admiral Jackson Cole on the bridge. He was younger than she expected, maybe 45, with dark skin and calculating eyes. He saluted crisply. Ambassador Moore, I have been reading your reports from the Council. I am sorry you had to watch that. We all had to watch it, Catherine said. The question is what we do about it. Cole gestured to the tactical display. It showed Zethran space with 23 systems marked in red. We do this. Simultaneous strikes on every major Zethran military installation. No warnings. No negotiations. No mercy. Catherine felt something cold settle in her chest. This was really happening. Humanity was going to war. Not the careful, limited conflicts the Council allowed. Real war, the kind that ended empires. When do we tell the Council? She asked. Cole smiled grimly. We already did. The message was sent 5 minutes ago. Catherine pulled out her tablet and accessed the diplomatic channels. Earth's message to the Galactic Council was already broadcasting on every frequency. She read it aloud. You asked us to be civilized. We followed your rules. We trusted your systems. We watched 6 billion innocents die because you needed time for proper procedures. You have shown us that your civilization protects the strong and abandons the weak. Therefore, we no longer recognize your authority. We will deliver the justice you refuse to provide. And when we are finished, you will understand something important. Civilization without the courage to defend it is just a waiting grave. The message ended with coordinates and a timestamp. In exactly 6 hours, the human fleet would enter Zethran space. Cole looked at her. Any second thoughts, Ambassador? Catherine thought about Sarah's last words. She thought about children crying in a shelter that was about to be destroyed. She thought about the Council's comfortable debates while millions burned. No, she said. No second thoughts. Let us show them what happens when humanity stops pretending to be civilized. The countdown began. 6 hours until the largest military operation in galactic history. 6 hours until humanity revealed what it truly was beneath the diplomatic smiles and peaceful treaties. 6 hours until the Zethran Empire learned that some species remember how to wage, and humanity remembered very well. Retribution unleashed. The human fleet materialized in Zethran space with mathematical precision. 15,000 warships appeared simultaneously across 23 systems, emerging from faster-than-light travel in perfect synchronization. It was a feat of coordination that should have been impossible. The Galactic Council's best military minds had calculated that no force could organize such a maneuver. They were wrong. Admiral Jackson Cole stood on the bridge of the Reckoning, watching the tactical displays update in real time. Every ship reported ready. Every weapon system showed green. Every target was locked. He had spent 20 years preparing for a moment he hoped would never come. Now that it was here, he felt nothing but cold determination. All ships report successful jump completion, his tactical officer announced. Commander Sarah Reeves was a veteran of Earth's hidden fleet, trained in combat doctrines the Council had never imagined. Zethran forces are detecting us now. They are scrambling their defenses. Too late, Cole said simply. Execute Operation Reckoning. All targets, simultaneous engagement. Across 23 star systems, human weapons spoke for the first time in 150 years of galactic peace. They spoke with terrible eloquence. The Zethran military headquarters orbited their second-largest colony world. It was a massive installation, home to 50,000 military personnel in the command structure for their entire empire. 300 warships sat docked around it, the pride of the Zethran fleet. They had subjugated a dozen species over the centuries. They had never known defeat. They had 16 seconds of warning before the first human missiles arrived. The missiles traveled at relativistic speeds, each one carrying enough kinetic energy to vaporize a city. Point defense systems tried to intercept them. Lasers and plasma batteries fired desperately into space. They destroyed perhaps 20% of the incoming ordnance. The rest hit home. The Zethran headquarters simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a gleaming symbol of imperial power. The next moment there was only expanding debris and flash-frozen atmosphere. The 300 warships docked around it had no time to raise shields or launch fighters. They died with their crews still at their stations, still trying to understand what was happening. Ambassador Catherine Moore watched from the Reckoning's observation deck. She had insisted on witnessing this. If humanity was going to abandon civilization, someone needed to remember what that looked like. Someone needed to carry the weight of what they were doing. The destruction was clinical, efficient, overwhelming. She felt nothing. Perhaps she should have felt horror at the scale of death. Perhaps she should have felt satisfaction at vengeance delivered. Instead, she felt only a hollow numbness. This was what justice looked like when the courts closed their doors. Ambassador Moore, a voice behind her. She turned to find Commander Reeves. Admiral Cole requests your presence on the bridge. The Zethrans are attempting to surrender. Catherine followed her to the bridge. Cole stood at the center, his face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. These were people who had trained for war while the rest of humanity played at peace. Now their training was finally being used. Put it through, Cole ordered. A holographic image appeared. It showed a Zethran military commander, his scales pale with fear. Human fleet, this is General Thross of the Zethran Defense Forces. We surrender. We are powering down our weapons. Please cease fire. Cole looked at Catherine. Your counsel, Ambassador. Catherine thought about the Minari. She thought about how they must have begged for mercy in their final moments. She thought about the council's response when she asked them to intervene. Not enough time, they had said. Proper procedures must be followed. No, she said quietly. No surrender. Not yet. Cole nodded and addressed the hologram. General Thross, your surrender is noted. However, combat operations will continue until all Zethran military capabilities are eliminated. You have approximately 4 hours to evacuate all non-combatants from military installations. After that, we will not distinguish between military and civilian targets at military sites. The Zethran's orange eyes widened. 4 hours? That is impossible. We have families living on these bases, children in the schools. The Minari had 48 hours to evacuate their entire civilization, Catherine said, stepping forward. You gave 6 billion people 48 hours. We are giving your military personnel 4 hours. Use them wisely. The transmission cut off. Cole looked at Catherine with something like respect. That was harsh. That was mercy, Catherine corrected. We could have given them no warning at all. We could have done to them exactly what they did to the Minari. Why didn't we? Catherine looked at the tactical displays at the Zethran systems marked in red. Because we are trying not to become them, even while we destroy them. The 4 hours passed with agonizing slowness. Zethran military bases erupted into chaos as personnel tried to evacuate families. Some succeeded. Many did not. When the deadline expired, human forces resumed their attacks with remorseless precision. The Zethran Empire had built its military over 8 centuries. They had shipyards capable of producing 100 vessels per year. They had fortress worlds ringed with orbital weapons. They had research stations developing new technologies. They had everything an empire needed to project power across dozens of systems. The human fleet destroyed it all in 6 days. Catherine watched it happen from the reckoning. She witnessed the systematic dismantling of an empire. Every shipyard was reduced to molten metal. Every fortress world had its defenses stripped away. Every research station was boarded by human marines who secured the data and then detonated the structures. The Zethran fleet tried to mount a defense. They gathered their remaining forces, nearly 2,000 ships, and prepared to make a stand at their homeworld. It was a desperate move, but understandable. If they could hold the humans at the capital, they might force negotiations. They might salvage something from this catastrophe. Admiral Cole received the intelligence reports and laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. They think 2,000 ships will stop us, he said to Catherine. They still do not understand what we are. What are we? Catherine asked. Cole pulled up a historical file on his display. It showed human wars from before the Council. World War II, the Eurasian conflicts, the resource wars. Billions dead in battles fought with primitive weapons and ancient hatreds. We are the species that killed 100 million of our own people in a single war. We are the species that invented weapons capable of sterilizing our own planet. We spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. The Council thought we had evolved past that. They were wrong. We just got better at hiding it. The human fleet assembled for the final battle. 8,000 ships, more than 4 times the Zethran force. But numbers were not the real advantage. Human ships were faster, more maneuverable, equipped with weapons that bent the laws of physics in ways the Council had forbidden. Antimatter warheads, gravitational disruptors, nanite swarms that could consume entire vessels from the inside. The battle for the Zethran homeworld lasted 9 hours. When it ended, the Zethran fleet was gone. Every ship destroyed. Every crew killed. The humans lost 3 vessels to lucky hits and technical malfunctions. 3 ships out of 8,000. Catherine stood on the bridge and looked at the Zethran homeworld rotating peacefully below. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. 8 billion Zethrans lived there. Most of them had nothing to do with the Minari genocide. Most were farmers, merchants, artists, teachers. Ordinary people living ordinary lives under a government they had not chosen. The Reckoning's weapons were locked on the planet. Cole could give the order. They could do to the Zethrans exactly what the Zethrans had done to the Minari. They could burn this world until nothing lived. They could make the Zethrans understand what it felt like to watch helplessly as everything they loved was destroyed. "Admiral," Catherine said quietly, "do not give that order." Cole looked at her. "They would have done it to us. They did do it to the Minari." "I know, but if we do this, we become them. We become the monsters the Council will say we are. We prove that humanity should never have been trusted. Then what do? They committed genocide. There must be consequences." Catherine thought about it. She thought about justice and revenge and the thin line between them. She thought about what kind of galaxy they wanted to build after this was over. Finally, she nodded. "There will be consequences. But not this. Not mass murder. We are better than that. We have to be." Cole studied her for a long moment. Then he gave orders. "Stand down planetary bombardment systems. Prepare for occupation operations instead. I want every Zethran official who participated in the Minari genocide arrested. I want documentation on every order given, every weapon fired, every decision made. We are going to give them trials." The occupation began immediately. Human Marines landed in Zethran cities. They were not gentle, but they were disciplined. They did not loot. They did not harm civilians. They arrested military commanders and government officials with mechanical efficiency. Anyone who resisted was subdued with non-lethal weapons when possible. When necessary, lethal force was authorized, but only when necessary. Catherine had compiled a list during the 6-day campaign. 83,000 names. Every Zethran officer who had commanded ships during the Minari genocide. Every government official who had given authorization. Every bureaucrat who had facilitated the logistics. She had spent the past 6 days reviewing communications intercepts, sensor logs, and captured documents. The list was comprehensive and damning. Human troops moved through Zethran space like a surgical instrument. They knew exactly who they were looking for. Some targets tried to hide. Human intelligence found them. Some tried to flee to neutral space. Human ships intercepted them. Within 3 weeks, 79,000 of the 83,000 people on Catherine's list were in custody. The others were dead, killed resisting arrest or by their own hand rather than face justice. The Galactic Council watched all of this in stunned disbelief. They sent messages to Earth demanding explanations, demanding humanity cease military operations, demanding the release of Zethran prisoners. Every message went unanswered. Finally, Council mediator Quinn sent a personal message directly to Catherine. She received it in her quarters aboard the Reckoning and played it in private. Quinn's holographic image appeared, looking exhausted. "Ambassador Moore, please. We must talk. What humanity is doing threatens the very foundation of galactic civilization. You cannot simply invade a sovereign empire and arrest its leadership. There are procedures, protocols, laws that govern these situations." Catherine recorded her response carefully. "Mediator Quinn, humanity followed your procedures. We trusted your protocols. We obeyed your laws, and 6 billion Minari died while you deliberated. Your civilization failed them. It failed us. It failed every species in this galaxy who believed the Council would protect them. So now we are creating a new civilization, one with actual consequences for genocide, one where justice means more than words." She sent the message and then ordered her assistant to block all further communications from the Council. She had work to do. The trials began on Minari Prime. Catherine insisted on that. If justice was to be served, it should be served in the place where the crime occurred. Human engineers had built a courthouse in the ruins of the Minari capital city. It was a simple structure, built from local stone, designed to last. Behind it stood the memorial wall, 4 billion names carved in permanent metal. It stretched for kilometers. The first trial was for General Cross, the Zethran officer who had commanded the fleet during the initial assault. He was brought into the courthouse in restraints. He was not mistreated, not beaten, not tortured. Human guards treated him with cold professional courtesy. Catherine served as chief prosecutor. She had no legal training, but Earth had sent its best lawyers to advise her. The trial was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every species could watch. Every species could see what humanity meant by justice. "General Cross," Catherine began, standing before the simple wooden podium. "You are charged with genocide, crimes against sentient beings, and violation of the fundamental laws of civilization." "How do you plead?" Cross looked at her with defiant orange eyes. "I followed my orders. I served my empire. I did what any military officer would do. You murdered 6 billion unarmed civilians. You destroyed 5 peaceful worlds. You hunted down refugees who tried to flee. These are not the actions of a soldier. These are the actions of a mass murderer. They were squatters on Zethran territory. We had legal rights. Catherine pulled up the holographic display. It showed footage from the massacre. Minari cities burning. Evacuation ships being destroyed. Children dying in the streets. She made Cross watch it all. She made the entire galaxy watch. Legal rights, she said when the footage ended. You claim legal rights to commit genocide. You claim the right to murder billions because of ancient property claims. Very well. Let us examine those claims. For 3 days, Catherine systematically destroyed the Zethrans' historical arguments. She brought in archaeologists, historians, and cultural experts. They testified that the Zethran documents were forged, that the Minari had legitimate sovereignty, that even if the claims were valid, they did not justify mass murder. The evidence was overwhelming. Cross's defense collapsed under the weight of facts. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was death by firing squad. Quick, painless, more mercy than he had shown the Minari. Cross was executed at dawn the next day. Catherine watched from a distance. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, nothing. This was not about emotion. This was about establishing a principle. Genocide would have consequences, always. The trials continued for 8 months. 79,000 defendants. Each trial was conducted properly, with defense attorneys, witnesses, evidence carefully reviewed. Some defendants were found guilty. Some were found not guilty and released. Catherine had promised justice, not revenge. Justice meant following the rules even when it was difficult. 56,000 were found guilty of participating in the genocide. Their sentences ranged from life imprisonment to execution, depending on their level of involvement. Those who had given orders received death sentences. Those who had merely followed orders received prison terms. It was harsh, but it was measured. It was proportional to the crimes committed. The galaxy watched every trial. Some species praised humanity for its restraint. Some condemned humanity for its violence. Many simply feared what humanity had revealed itself to be. The diplomatic smiles were gone. The peaceful facade had cracked. Everyone now understood that humanity was the most dangerous species in known space, and they had been dangerous the entire time. 3 months after the last trial concluded, the Galactic Council finally requested a formal meeting with Earth's government. Catherine attended as Earth's representative. She walked into the same chamber where she had begged for help 9 months earlier. The same faces looked at her, though now they looked afraid. Mediator Quinn spoke first. Ambassador Moore, the Council wishes to discuss the future of human-council relations. Your actions against the Zethran Empire, while understandable, have created significant concerns. Concerns, Catherine repeated flatly. What concerns would those be? Concerns about stability, about adherence to galactic law, about humanity's willingness to act unilaterally in military matters. Catherine looked around the chamber. She saw the same species who had refused to help the Minari. The same comfortable politicians who valued procedure over lives. She felt disgust rise in her throat. The Zethran Empire no longer exists, she said. Its military is destroyed. Its government has been tried and executed. Its people are under human administration until a legitimate democratic government can be established. This happened because you failed to act, because your laws protected genocide, because your civilization was revealed to be worthless when tested. Ambassador, please, Quinn said. We understand your anger, but we must find a way forward. The galaxy needs order. It needs rules. Then make new rules, Catherine said. She pulled out a data chip and placed it on her podium. This is the Protection Protocols, a new legal framework drafted by Earth's government. It establishes clear definitions of genocide. It creates automatic enforcement mechanisms. It authorizes immediate military intervention to prevent mass atrocities, and it designates humanity as the enforcement arm of these protocols. The chamber erupted in argument. Multiple species objected. They said humanity could not be trusted with such power. They said this would make humanity the galaxy's police force. They said it violated the principles of sovereign equality. Catherine let them argue. She waited until the chamber quieted. Then she spoke again, her voice carrying to every corner of the massive room. You misunderstand. I am not asking for your permission. I am informing you of reality. The protection protocols are now in effect. Humanity will enforce them with or without council approval. If you commit genocide, we will stop you. If you attempt mass murder, we will intervene. If you prey on the weak, we will destroy you. This is not negotiable. You cannot simply declare yourselves the arbiters of galactic law, the Varathian delegate protested. This is tyranny. No, Catherine said coldly. Tyranny was watching 6 billion people die because you needed time for proper procedures. Tyranny was the Zethran Empire erasing an entire species while you debated. What we are offering is justice. Real justice. Backed by the only thing that has ever actually stopped genocide. Overwhelming force. She looked at Quinn directly. You have a choice. You can accept the protection protocols and work with humanity to enforce them. Or you can reject them and deal with us as you dealt with the Zethrans. We are not picky about which option you choose. The council deliberated for 6 days. In the end, they accepted the protection protocols. They had no real choice. Humanity's military superiority was absolute. Attempting to fight would only result in more empires being dismantled. Better to accept the new order and try to shape it from within. Catherine returned to Earth a year after the Minari genocide. She was greeted as a hero by some, a war criminal by others. She did not care about either assessment. She had done what needed to be done. The cost would haunt her forever, but the alternative would have been worse. She stood in her apartment in New York and looked out at the city. Millions of lights in the darkness, millions of people living their lives, unaware of how close their civilization had come to revealing its true nature. Humanity had stopped being civilized for 9 months. They had unleashed violence that shocked the galaxy, and they had done it to protect people who could not protect themselves. Was it worth it? Catherine did not know. She knew that genocide now carried real consequences. She knew that weak species looked to humanity for protection. She knew that the galaxy was more stable than it had been in centuries, because everyone feared what would happen if they crossed certain lines. But she also knew that humanity had revealed itself as the galaxy's apex predator. They had shown that beneath the diplomatic smiles and peaceful trade agreements lived a species that remembered how to wage total war. A species that had weapons capable of cracking worlds. A species that would abandon all restraint when pushed far enough. The Minari were still dead. 6 billion people still murdered. Justice had been served, but it could not bring them back. Catherine thought about Sarah, the musician who had broadcast her final message from that doomed shelter. She thought about the 73 people who died with her. She thought about all the names on the memorial wall. She had promised them someone would remember. Someone would care. Someone would deliver justice. She had kept that promise. It had cost her humanity's innocence, the galaxy's peace, and perhaps her own soul. But she had kept the promise. Catherine poured herself a drink and raised it to the window, to the city, to the millions sleeping peacefully below. To civilization, she said quietly. May we never have to stop being civilized again. But if we must, may we have the courage to do what is necessary. She drank. The whiskey burned. It was appropriate. Everything burned when humanity stopped being civilized. The trick was making sure the right things burned and the innocent were protected. They had managed that this time, barely. Next time might be different. Next time they might not be able to hold on to their principles while delivering violence. Next time they might become the monsters they were fighting. That was the danger of unleashing humanity's true nature. Once revealed, it could never be completely hidden again. But for now, the galaxy was safer. The weak were protected. Genocide carried consequences. And humanity stood watch, weapons ready, hoping they would never need to be used but knowing they would if necessary. That was civilization's true foundation. Not laws or treaties or councils, but the willingness of good people to defend the innocent with overwhelming force. The Zethrans had learned that lesson. The galaxy would not forget it. And neither would humanity. The price of peace was eternal vigilance. The price of justice was sometimes violence. The price of civilization was knowing when to abandon it temporarily to preserve it permanently. Humanity had paid all those prices. They would pay them again if needed, because some promises must be kept, no matter the cost.